The first session that we're going to begin today is essentially going to talk about how do we water the root. In the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, we are essentially an educational society. And at the Ministry of Education of ISKCON and the GBC body, for us, the most foundational definition of education is reading, understanding, absorbing, and living a life according to Srila Prabhupada's books. The two sessions today are going to focus on and dedicated on scriptural studies, primarily Srila Prabhupada's books, and how to expand this movement of scriptural studies, Sastric studies as we also call them. So I would like to invite our first speaker today, His Grace Atul Krishna Prabhu, who's an executive committee member at the Ministry of Education, a loved teacher, educator, who has given several decades of his life in training many, many devotees, and who also currently is the convener on behalf of the ministry, and he convenes and chairs the board of examinations. So on that note, I'd like to invite His Grace Atul Krishna Prabhu to come and talk to us about his topic of Sastric degree assistants. Hare Krishna.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jitapatikamanam Shri Guru Vaishnava Shri Rupam Shagara Jatam Shagara Raghunatam Dhangsha Jivam Sadhitam Zavritam Parajana Shatam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Baram Shahadam Maita Shri Vishakam Vidam Chamantra Guru Ajapta Shri Guru Grantar Charane Kaliya Vandan. Sastric Degree Study Assistant, a project of the ISKCON Board of Examinations under the auspices of the ISKCON Ministry of Education. Let's begin by considering Srila Prabhupada's vision for the Sastric Degree program. In 1969, Srila Prabhupada wrote that I want that all of my spiritual sons and daughters will inherit this title of Bhaktivedanta, so that the family transcendental diploma will continue through the generations. Those possessing the title of Bhaktivedanta will be allowed to initiate disciples. Maybe by 1975, all of my disciples will be allowed to initiate and increase the number of generations. That is my program. Srila Prabhupada's program for the 4 Sastric degrees was that here he mentions specifically that all of his disciples he wanted would have Bhakti Vedanta degrees by 1975. In other words, they would have studied all of his books and taken the assessment and been awarded those degrees. Now, after, that was in Prabhupada mentioned 1975, after 50 years, we have not achieved Srila Prabhupada's vision of all of his disciples having Bhaktivedanta degrees. In fact, after 50 years, we have less than 20 devotees in the movement with Bhaktivedanta degrees. And amongst those, I'm not aware of any of those who are Prabhupada's disciples. The reason for this is due to accessibility of the degree courses and also accessibility of teacher training in order to have a devotee sufficiently qualified according to our standards to be able to teach these courses. Teacher training programs are not globally available. So in this way, courses were not accessible, and we have a situation where we haven't achieved Srila Prabhupada's vision of all of his disciples having Bhaktivedanta degrees. So considering this, over the last couple of years, the ISKCON Board of Examination, in conjunction with the Ministry of Education, has been developing programs to try to help us achieve Srila Prabhupada's vision. I'll share with you some of these programs today. We established working on establishing the study and teach program. This is particularly designed for leaders in the movement, preachers in the movement, a type of devotee that would naturally have a group of people be interested to take classes from them in studying the Shastra, that type of devotee. And because of their current engagement and responsibility in preaching and leading, etc., they're unable to take a course because of their service responsibilities. So providing a system whereby they can study the Shastra, study the degrees, the various degrees, and at the same time teach a group of devotees, and in that way carry on with perhaps teach their administrative team or teach the group of people who they're regularly preaching to. So in that way, they can simultaneously carry on with their administrative service and their preaching service, and they can gradually, with their studies, they can take the degrees. In order to facilitate that, we've been working on providing online teacher training programs, and currently, as we heard last night about Paratattva Chatuspati Padmamukanema, he's teaching online teachers training. The Mayapur Institute is also offering online teachers training in various languages. And in addition to that, we've also established a standard online assessments. We have prepared, there's 300 essay questions for the Bhakti Shastras, as well as closed book short questions as well. And we've also prepared questions, a couple of hundred questions for the first two cantos. We're halfway through the third canto. So in this way, the main obstacles we're facing devotees of taking teachers training and getting qualified to teach, and also not being able to teach the courses because not being able to do the assessment. We've provided that facility to make it a lot easier for people. And in this way, we can, with the study and teach program, we will coordinate the assessment for that particular study and teach preacher or leader. We will arrange the assessment for that person, and then having their assessment completed, they can carry on and assess their students. So in this way, gradually going through the courses stage by stage, they can complete their assessment, they can teach, and they can teach others. And in this way, the number of devotees taking the degrees can increase tremendously. In addition to the study and teach program, we've also developed a summative exams system. Now, that means closed book exams. Now, this program would be is designed for devotees, leaders and preachers who may not even be able to have the time to actually go through the classes and teaching people as in the study and teach program, but they know the philosophy, they're conversant in the philosophy, they study Prabhupada's books, and they would be available to periodically take exams and in that way get their degrees. Now, in regard summative assessment, some statements that Srila Prabhupada made specifically regarding the examinations, the idea is that anyone, after studying the books, who wants to gain the title of Bhakti Shastri can take the exam. The real purpose is that our men should not be neglectful of the philosophy. So Prabhupada's indicating here the purpose of the degree program. I mean, even a very highly motivated devotee will periodically and systematically read and study all of Prabhupada's books, right to the end of the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's a rare soul to have that motivation. So Prabhupada understanding that a degree system would increase devotees' motivation to regularly study his books. And as he mentions, the real purpose is our men should not be neglectful of the philosophy. Prabhupada continues. Prabhupada made many statements about the degree program and wrote in letters to various devotees. This is particularly significant, this letter in 1976, because Prabhupada's addressed it to all the GBC members. So what he says here is obviously very important. Anyone wishing to be initiated as a Brahmin will have to pass the Bhakti Shastri exam. Anyone wishing to take sannyas will have to pass the Bhakti Vaibhav exam. Anyone wishing to be second initiated will sit for examination once a year at Mayapur. Answers will be in essay form, and authoritative quotations will be given a bigger score. During exams, books may not be consulted. So Prabhupada specifically mentions here the summative assessment system. Prabhupada said many things about the degree program. He didn't specify that much about assessments, study works and coursework and homework, etc. But he did specifically on several occasions indicate that this system of making available devotees that they can study Srila Prabhupada's books, and then when they are ready, they can take an examination. Prabhupada specifically did mention this system. And so we're trying to include this system of assessment in the making that available to come closer to fulfilling Prabhupada's actual vision for the degree program. Now, of course, the question is that because we already have such programs, I'll give you an idea. Let's have a look at what this actually means in more detail. So for the 4 Bhakti Shastri books, we have about 200 essay questions already prepared, and we've been working on those for more than 18 months, 200 essay questions. The nature of this exam is that you're given the question bank in advance. The 200 questions you're given in advance, and then you have to study. And as you're studying, you have to prepare yourself to answer any of those questions. And on the exam, randomly, questions will appear. So this is the system that Prabhupada had in mind, although he didn't mention a question bank, but we can see that obviously it's much more effective because the question bank itself will induce, it's like a curriculum, it's like a study curriculum, and devotees will study the books in order to be able to answer the questions. And in this way, we're guiding their studies in the same way, in a similar way to we would in a course. So we've prepared specifically 50 questions for Bhagavad Gita chapters 1 to 6. And similarly, the content could be divided into 3 or 4 sections, and around about a question bank consisting of about 50 questions for each of those sections could be given. And it's not that one has to do the entire Bhakti Shastri in one sitting, but one could do that in 3 or 4 sittings of around about 50 questions in the question bank, and then have a test in which about 10 perhaps, or 10 or 15 random essays appear. And that can be done in closed book fashion. We've also, as for regular preachers and leaders, we've also developed a specific program for very senior candidates. As Prabhupada mentioned, his disciples. He also mentioned that gurus should have Bhakti Vedanta degrees, sannyasis should have Bhakti Vaibhava degrees. So very senior candidates, Prabhupada disciples, GBCs, gurus, etc., can take a shorter exam. And in this way, while we still have our Prabhupada disciples with us, we pray that we can fulfill Prabhupada's vision by having his disciples get Bhakti Vedanta degrees. Now, question may arise, well, what about the parity between we've already established very effective on-site programs throughout the movement. So how do we get some sort of parity between those and the summative assessment system? Well, in the summative exams, you're going to have a question bank consisting of 200 essay questions that you have to prepare for. You can take it section by section. That is not an easy task. In the on-site courses, we'll be hearing more about these. Gauranga Darshan Prabhu will be giving his presentation on setting up on-site training programs. There's no closed book essay assessment. It is, the standards indicate that it can, all the essay assessment can be done open book coursework. And there is some closed book assessment, but they're shorter questions. And the essays you can do with open book and in your own time. So definitely the on-site programs are still going to remain a very attractive option for many, many devotees. So in this way, in the Board of Examinations and in cooperation with the Ministry of Education over the last couple of years, we're trying to increase the number of the options available for devotees to take the courses. So we have our on-site courses, have a study and teach program. If you can't take the on-site course, but you're qualified, you can take the study and teach program. And if you can't even do that, then at least you'll have an opportunity to take summative exams. So in this way, we'll be increasing accessibility to the degree programs perhaps 3 times or even more. Establishing these programs, we could expect to see that the number of devotees taking the degrees and systematically studying Srila Prabhupada's books in the movement could increase perhaps 3 or 4 or even more times. And that would be a wonderful service for Srila Prabhupada. He would definitely be very pleased with that. So in order for us to achieve this, we require assistants. And today's topic is Shastric Degree Study Assistant. Now, particularly for these two options of study and teach program and summative assessment program, we're going to require tutoring. It's not that you just left on your own. Now with the cybernet world, we can connect you to a teacher. And so as you're studying and teaching, you can have all your questions answered. You can be guided by an individual teacher in a tutor system. That tutor can also assess your open book questions as you do them, and then subsequently you can assess your students. And similarly, for the summative system, we require tutoring, and we require individuals and qualified teachers to assess your papers. And as we're expecting that many devotees may be inclined to take up these programs, we're today campaigning to encourage you to consider becoming a Shastric Degree Study Assistant and serving in this capacity. This is like surgical strikes into the camp of Maya. And can enhance your effectiveness as an educator tremendously if you can focus your attention on a particularly qualified individual and empower them to further enhance their practice of Bhagavad Bhakti and empower them to further spread the Krishna consciousness movement. The results of your efforts as a teacher and an educator can be greatly enhanced in this way. The qualifications for a Shastric Degree Study Assistant, basic teacher training up to the Bhakti Shastri Teacher Training Course or equivalent programs, that you've completed the Shastric degrees, and some reference from an ISKCON authority approving you to serve in that capacity. We're going to provide to you today, we're providing for you links to the question banks that we've prepared, and we would very much appreciate your comments on those questions. Perhaps you'd like to suggest modifying the questions or adding additional questions. As I mentioned, we have 300 essay questions and additional questions for the Bhakti Shastras. We have a couple of hundred questions already prepared for the first two cantos. Well, halfway through the third canto, we will expect to have about 500 or 600 essay questions prepared for the Bhakti Vaibhav in due course of time. And we would very much appreciate you to look at those and give comments. And we will also be providing you with a survey questionnaire, which gives you more practical information on how you can become a Shastric Degree Study Assistant. A comment from Srila Prabhupada to conclude with today, indicating his own enthusiasm and inspiration to assess students in their studies. I am pleased to note that you will be giving 4 classes in Los Angeles universities. This is to Tamar Krishna Maharaj in 1969. And everyone is welcome to appear in the Bhakti Shastri examination and take this title. Regarding the tests you are holding there in Los Angeles, keep them there. When I return, I shall see them personally. So that concludes our brief presentation. And,
thank you so much, Atul Krishna Prabhu. And I think at this very point in time, before we take questions, I would like to request that the poll be pulled up on your screen. So what we are requesting now is for the participants who are present to please indicate which of the following area could you assist with the board of exam: tutoring, assessing open book papers, assessing closed book papers, or all of the above. So if you're inspired by the direction that we are taking, please, I would like to, 1 minute, please. So if you're inspired by the direction we are taking, please choose one of the options and let us know. The next question is, how can we contact you? Please send an email to Atul Krishna Prabhu, and single choice. So we're requesting everybody to please participate in this poll. It will allow us to measure and find out the enthusiasm and for us to be able to build on this initiative that we are taking. Thank you. So we're going to keep the poll open for a few more seconds.
We're also providing the link. Can we put that link in the question?
In the chat box, you mean to say?
Yeah, I have it. I have it. Or if someone has it, they can put it there. I'll put it in if required.
Okay, so we're going to now take question and answers. One question from Chandra Prabhu. What system is used to evaluate essay question responses?
We have that in the Bhakti Shastri Teachers Training course. We have detailed training on how to assess questions, looking at the giving, which includes giving feedback, identifying where the student's learning has been successful and indicating that and giving credit to that, and also identifying the areas where the student can improve. And also that involves giving this qualitative assessment and also quantitative assessment. And we have prepared marking keys, and we train you on how to use those marking keys. So there's a brief description of what sort of training you'll get in terms of assessing open book and closed book essays.
Thank you, Atul Krishna Prabhu. We currently don't have any more questions on the session. We're grateful for your time. Thank you so very much for giving us an insight into the new system and the possibilities that are being created in the new paradigm to help devotees together as a movement so that more and more devotees can take the examinations and get their certifications. We're grateful
Thank
to
you very much.